Welcome to the first Charter Exploratory Ad Hoc Subcommittee meeting. Sorry for the delay in getting started. We had a little bigger crowd than anticipated and had to move the room. We're a little bit behind the power curve here in terms of the fact that we're renovating the City Hall, and so the upstairs has moved to the downstairs, and there's barely enough room for us to work, let alone have room for a good turnout like we had today. So we had to move it to the council chamber. We apologize for burning your time, and we'll try and be more organized in the future. Chris, I wonder if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, because this meeting is a very important meeting for the future of our city, and we'd like to get started with the right tenor.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Richard, before you, if you'd remain standing, Richard, could you please give us an invocation and ask for special divine guidance in terms of the work we're about to set out to do?
Well, in light of the fact that this is a very special week to many people in the world, and a special significance will occur this weekend, we solemnly beseech the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Buddha, Allah, God, to help us do these tasks that we are about to embark upon in such a way that they are for the greatest good, the benefit, and the prosperity of all of our citizens of Moreno Valley. In your name we pray, amen.
Thank you, Richard. There, you're back where you belong. Yes.
Okay, sit.
Lauren's getting jealous.
So I'd like to make a few introductions, and then after the introductions, I'll make a few comments in terms of how we're going to proceed. So starting off to the right, would you please introduce yourself?
Michael Geller.
Richard Stewart, City Councilman.
Tom Owings, Mayor.
Suzanne Bryant, Acting City Attorney. Executive Assistant.
And appreciate the fact that you took the time out of your busy schedule. I would like to ask, is there a spokesman here from the Charter campaign to, I see, the Citizen-Led Initiative? Craig, is it Greg or Craig? Craig. So Craig, will you sort of be the spokesperson for your movement or your organization today? Okay. Well, first of all, thank you very much for taking the time to do what you're doing, and then to take additional time to be here to help us. So thank you. Appreciate that. So I'd like to kind of start out by saying I'd like to keep this as informal as possible. And I would like to give you, go ahead. Okay. Curtis? Can we, you know, in court, the judge usually asks when there are two attorneys to have one of them speak only on one area and another the other. So what area, can we divide this so we know who to look to for comments?
No, it's possible. Can we make that determination?
Sure. Just so we have one spokesperson, you know, that way we know what's going on with you guys as a unit. Okay, so we'd like to try and keep this as informal as possible, and it should hopefully not be a non-combat zone here. Try and keep the peace and be civil to each other if we can. We'd like to start out by allowing as much public comment as necessary, but also realizing that there's not much to comment about until you see some of the work product. So we're still grappling with some of the rules that we think that we should proceed by. We could just allow a 15-minute time frame at the beginning of each meeting for comments, and then as we pass out work product to you, the following meeting, or on the following meeting, you'd have more, you'll have more concrete things to discuss with us. And then at the end of the meeting, we would also give a 15-minute comment period. And if we could keep the comments completely germane to the topic of the day, as opposed, so not to skip ahead in terms of the agenda topics, because one of the documents that we will hand out at the end of this meeting is a table of contents, which is just a loose outline of how we are going to proceed. There will also be a calendar, which I don't know, did we copy the calendar? Could we do that? Well, we'll have it by the end of the meeting. Well, at the next meeting, then, what we will do is we will give you a calendar of the proposed agendas. And it literally will you can just take the table of contents and it'll be one chapter at a time, basically. So you'll have a good idea of what the next topic will be. So the way I kind of see it is that, you know, you'll be giving us some comments about what we're going to talk about during the day at the first 15 minutes. And the second 15 minutes could be comments for the topic of that day, further comments, or it could be comments for our future meeting and the topics that will be on the next meeting agenda. So if we could kind of abide by those rules, is there a consensus in the room that that's a fair way of approaching it? I see a lot of heads nodding yes. Okay. Sir?
We established the norms, right?
Yes.
You
You know, if you folks would like to, you can speak from the microphone, but I think if you're okay, we could just do this dialogue. It gets us through quicker.
But for recording purposes.
You can't record it if you're not at the microphone.
Yeah.
It doesn't hear it.
You just
Well-
hear one voice.
I understand that, but some people it's not necessary. They don't feel it important to be on camera all the time and have their voice recorded. So,
Tom, can I suggest it's a portable mic. Why don't we pass it? And
yeah,
then
we
if
can
the
just
speaker-
pass
as
it
the
around
speaker
if you'd
speaks, I
like.
can hand it to him.
sir,
The
could
way
you
everybody
just,
else get up and
you
down.
can just take it. We'll get the guy, technician will do it. So, I saw a lot of heads nodding. Sir?
I was here in February, and this is the first meeting that I've attended since then, and I really don't have a clue other than what I'm looking at. I'm sorry, my name is Luke Fuller. I'm a citizen here in the city of Moreno Valley, and I attended the meeting in February, and I have not, when we first discussed these.
So you were at the study session on Saturday?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And I have not attended a meeting since then, and I have a copy now of the agenda. And so what you're asking me to do is to comment on something that I have no clue. Is it the possibility that right now someone could give me an overview?
Sure.
A 30-second overview of what's been going on, so I'll have an idea, because I do have some
Well,
comments.
we really haven't proceeded much beyond what the study session outlined in terms of, so this is the first meeting of this subcommittee. So the council formed a subcommittee to write a draft charter. And so there's two charter initiatives going forward, one initiated by the city council and one by a group of citizens.
Okay.
So what we want to discuss at this meeting is the city council initiative for the charter. And so what you have in front of you is the agenda for today's meeting. And it really isn't so much the agenda for the meeting as it is just our organizational meeting, so that we can get some ground rules established, so that we can proceed in an orderly fashion and know what to expect at every meeting, so that the rules don't change at every meeting. And hopefully we can set the tenor of these meetings to be one of cooperative work as opposed to contention. And so that means that everyone's opinion is equal to everyone else's opinion. And there are no charter experts in this state, I can tell you that. I've done a lot of research. And so I have a lot of faith in our ability to do this as a group. And so that's basically what we're doing today. So go ahead.
Great, thank you very much.
All right. Go ahead. Sure. Oh, hold it, I guess somebody preempted the mic. It's the power of the mic, so.
Okay, you were saying that we're going to set some norms. You have to remember that norms can be changed.
Sure.
Therefore, if we're looking at the efficiency, how the meetings is running, if we need to incorporate or institute a norm that will enhance that position, we'll do that, right?
Exactly. It's kind of like the Marine Corps. We're going to adapt and overcome.
Okay.
All right.
Hi, I was not at the study session in, I guess, February, so I'm kind of curious. I see 2 city council members up there and 2 city staff. I don't understand the civilian that's up there, the citizen Michael Geller. I'm kind of wondering what his role is and how it was chosen. He would represent the citizens.
Michael is a special advisor to the subcommittee, so he's acting in the role as an advisor to Richard Stewart and myself.
Tom, can I make some comments?
Well, let's just get through the
All right.
group here.
Sure.
Okay, any further comments? Go ahead, Deanna Reeder. Oh, go ahead, sir.
I have the microphone. I'm going to do the Donahue thing and run over there after I'm done with it. My name is Alex Landsberg. I'm with Smart Cities Prevail. Thanks for having us all here, and I'm glad to see so many folks here. Though my one point I think I'd like to make, at least at the outset, in terms of sort of process specifically around public comments, is that in my own experience, both dealing with charters and sort of going to city councils all around California, I find that it's much more effective to allow public comment on the specific item at hand rather than sticking it all at the front. While that's convenient for people who may come at the front end to say their piece on items that may or may not be in the agenda, it's really hard to have substantive informed comments on an item before you've even had an opportunity to hear.
Well, that's the whole purpose of this is that we will be handing out these topic discussions today, and they would be appropriate for public comment at the next meeting, not this meeting.
Well,
so
it sort of desynchronizes people's participation. So somebody can actually could hear one of the committee members up there say something that they thoroughly disagree with, but they can't come to the next meeting. So it really seems
well, listen, we're going to provide. We do not have the ability here in 1.5 hours to do a constitutional convention like they did when they did the U.S. Constitution. It took them several months of 8-hour-a-day deliberations to form that document, and if you count the number of pages, it's about 1/3 the pages or 1/5 the pages of a normal city charter. So we will provide a lot of mechanisms to answer that. Those concerns of yours, and one of them will be that you can, for this meeting, any topics that you wish to critique or offer comments, you can comment to Tomo, T-O-M-O, at moval.org and put in the subject line charter. In the future, we will have a dedicated mailbox. It will probably be charter at moval.org, and comments, specific comments, and draft suggestions can be made to those email addresses, and they will be circulated to the subcommittee and will be given proper weight. Okay.
So before I pass it on again, just let me leave with this: 3-minute public comments on items on the agenda.
It's not 3 minutes. We said 15.
Tend to be at a time per person.
Okay.
Tend to be the most effective way of getting citizen input, if that's what you want.
Thank you.
Actually, in reading your agenda, the only public comments it says that you're allowing are public comments on any matter which is not listed on the agenda.
Well,
so I guess that maybe at the end is where you wanted to put public comments on matters on the agenda, because you kind of left that out.
no, I'm suggesting that we're making the rules now, so we can change this. And so, Deanna, don't take everything literally. And I would just hope in the future that you would allow for the fact this is the first time any of us have done this. There are going to be meanderings. There is no straight line from here to there because we've not done it before, and we're going to have a few meanders along the way, and they shouldn't be considered trickery or going back on our word or some sort of deception. It's just what they are, meanderings along a process. Sir?
Can I actually finish what I was about to say?
Sure.
The one very important issue to me, and I'm not sure if it's on the agenda or not because it's really not clear to me, is until you acknowledge that a gift of public funds does not apply to a charter, and until you specifically say, state, or however you want to do it, say that you're not going to use the utility company and make a gift of any of the Moreno Valley Utility Electrical, this will be an issue. So the faster you acknowledge that you understand that a gift of public funds doesn't apply to a charter, we can get past that issue. If you keep going over
I would
it,
suggest that you put your wish list of things to be included and not to be included in an email and send it to that, and it will be
you
given.
just told me everything I needed to know.
And it will be given the proper weight.
Oh, I'm sorry. Further.
Because, you know, Deanna, this is a process, and we're not going to speed the process up to suit your schedule. We're going to go through this methodically, one section at a time. There's a section where that'll apply, and you'll be able to address it then. But this is a consensus group. It's not your group, it's not my group, it's a consensus group. And while you may think that those things are absolute deal breakers to you, they may not be to the rest of the 200,000 people that live in the city. So we will proceed in a very orderly, methodical method, but we are not going to skip around, and we're not going to make deals to proceed. So if you object to whatever we come up with, there's a way to handle that. It's called a ballot box. So, next.
Good afternoon. I agree with the gentleman behind me. Definitely, do think as a citizen, this meeting should have been held at a later time where more people would have been able to participate. It was held at 1:30. A lot of these individuals here had to take time off of work. And for the mayor to indicate to us any opinions we have or comments to submit it through an email, the public's not going to see the email. So I would appreciate, Mr. Mayor, that you please reconsider it and allow us to have at least the 3 minutes for each topic.
But see, that's an assumption that you just made. And, you know, I'd like you to please stop making assumptions. You're assuming that no one will see the email but you. Or but us.
Are you going to you're going to mail them out to the residents of Moreno Valley?
Well, we could post them on our website, couldn't we? Because
Are
we
you
have
going to post them?
in previous meetings, we have made it clear that we will post everything on the website.
Okay, so you're telling me that my comment that I sent to you will be posted on the website?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to clarify the statement that on the pre ones, like say on your public comments on the beginning of it, should be coming from this meeting here. Now, if you want to comment, it'll be on the first part of the next meeting, I would assume.
Yes.
And then any comment you have after that, after the meeting, is basically what you're probably looking for in the next agenda.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I want to clarify that.
And listen, I want to comment. I want to just tell you something that I know as a scientific fact. When you speak, you use one side of the brain. When you write, you use the other side of the brain. You cannot totally do yourself or any thought justice unless you speak it to yourself and write it. Then you're using both sides of the brain. Thoughts occur to you in writing that will never occur to you in speech. It is very important for us to lay pen to pencil on these ideas, because we need the total brain power of every individual involved in this to get to where we need to be. So written submissions, in my opinion, are extremely important, because if you've ever sat down to write an essay or a class assignment, you begin to think differently, and things occur to you in writing that would never occur to you in speech. So I hope that if we take this seriously enough to spend all this time doing it, that we'll take it seriously enough to lay pen to paper, so that we have the advantage of your thoughts, both spoken and written.
Craig Givens, Concerned Citizen Moreno Valley Advocacy Group. Just for some clarification here, so that I understand that we're talking about. So you're saying that we're going to go to each one of these topics A through J, A through I, one at a time, and like preamble, you're going to talk about what will be the preamble of the charter?
No, actually, what I'm saying is this. Today, before when you leave this meeting, we will hand you our first working draft of the preamble, A through I.
Okay.
And we will leave that for you for the following week to make written comments through the email. And then you will have an opportunity at the next meeting for public comment on those items.
Now, so are you saying that the team up there is going to go through each one of these items and explain the rationale behind each one of those, or are you just going to hand us out a document?
We're going to hand out these documents to you at the end of this meeting.
Okay.
And you will have a week to study them and comment on them through the email. And then you will also have the ability to come to the next meeting and comment at that meeting about those items. And at that point, you can ask questions of the panel, and we will have a dialogue about those items one at a time.
So basically, there will not be a presentation on these items today?
No, because the documents speak for themselves,
Okay.
but there will be explanations. You know, you have 3 lawyers sitting here at this dais right now, and they all have a different perspective on it, and when we will discuss each of these items, and hopefully, if we can do this in a manner in which we're just discussing now, we can have conversations as opposed to speeches.
Okay.
Hi, Arlen Gaynor, citizen of Moreno Valley. Mrs. Espinoza made a very good point, and I would hope that the team there would consider the fact that, yes, we do have 200,000 people in the city, and this is an extremely small portion of it, and we certainly can't speak for everyone there within our city, but I would hope that you would consider the fact that 1:30 p.m. is not a very good time. I can tell you right now, 3 of us would not be in this room now if it was not during spring break. So obviously 3 of us are teachers, and maybe more. So I would hope that you would consider the fact that let's be considerate of all of our citizens, and this is a very much of a blue city town, and most of us have to work. Let's have this meeting at a more conducive time, and that should be after 5 p.m. We do a lot of commuting, so we want to reach as many people as we possibly can, Mr. Mayor. So please, I don't know who came up with the 1:30 time, but it's not a very convenient time for the majority of the people. And I've lived here 25 years, so I think I can speak for a lot of people within this city. So please, let that be a major factor so we can have more input from the people of our city.
Well, I appreciate your comments, but you know, this is this format in which I think we're going to proceed, and I think that we could sit here and debate about the format of it. Yeah, I appreciate that, but it is our committee. Excuse me, sir.
It's a fact.
Okay. All right.
Say something, Tom?
Go ahead.
I think you're getting a little bit ahead of the cart. And the first place, this is supposed to be a working subcommittee, and most of the work that we're going to be doing is going to be done independent of each other. And it will be done by us looking at the drafts, and it is an evolving thing that changes maybe daily. I mean, I literally printed out some of this morning that's changed in the last couple days. That's why we're talking about putting revision dates, so I know which is the latest one, and it's not the one that just, I have 3 versions of one of these, and I don't know now which one was first, unless I mark it when I print it out. So this is a working group. If we have a 2-hour meeting and we spend an hour and a half on public comments, we'll never get anything done. But we're going to take the items. Nothing will even go to any kind of a final version. Tom agreed it's going to go to a study session, which is at night, which is televised. And when you get to a point where you have still a rough draft, there'll be the opportunity to speak on that item at the study session, where the whole council can also comment too, because it's not 2 of us, and it's not the half a dozen people that are here. It's the fact is, this is something that needs to get out. The study session, as I view it, will probably be the place that the greatest impact of the public comments and the council and the staff takes place on this. All we're doing is trying to put something together. You know, you can go online and Google this stuff. I've just this morning has been added into our box was drafts, public comment input that's 68 pages from the city of Costa Mesa. They took all the citizen inputs and consolidated them. There's one from Rancho Palos Verdes. There's a whole bunch of stuff to digest.
Well, I'd just like to remind you that the United States Constitution was done in complete and total secrecy because they knew they would never get it done if they did it the way you all are suggesting.
But the other part of it is that the city has...
Each member had to take an oath of secrecy. So there wasn't one iota of information about the draft document for the United States Constitution made public until the Federalist Papers.
But,
so I just want you to understand, Richard's point is a good one. This is a working committee. It is a committee of the whole. In other words, we are just a portion of the committee, and we are going to operate in this manner. And there is plenty of public comment available. It's on television right now, and in order for us to get our job done, we need to proceed this way. We understand your concerns, but the public input in public is not the most important to this subcommittee at this time. It's unusual at this time for us to even allow that. This normal committee would just sit here and work among ourselves, and you would be allowed to watch. And that's, so we have extended the ability to have the comments. You have written comment, you have televised comment. Each chapter will be a study session. Each chapter will be a study session for the council, and you'll have an opportunity in front of all the cameras at prime time to make your comments. So this is a process. This is just one part of the process. It is not the total process. And when the council, at those study sessions, the council is going to be changing the work that we're doing at this level. So the process will be that there will be a working draft. You will have comments, ability to comment in writing and orally to those working draft. It will then be turned to a first draft, in which the city attorney will then revise, and then will be presented to the city council in a work session, in which you will all have the 3-minute opportunities to discuss each and every moment of it. And I will afford you, if you've been to any study session that I've ever conducted, there's been plenty of public comment allowed at the beginning of the meeting and at the end of the meeting. And so those are the kind of rules that we have to live by, and I hope you will abide by them and participate. But if you do not feel that you can participate with that limited amount of comment, I understand. So we need to kind of move forward here. We're already 25 minutes into the meeting, and we are still talking about things, and you can see how this would get out of hand if we talked about every single item on this agenda. There are 9 items on the agenda, times 3, 27 minutes. And if you wanted a second go around at it, our whole hour is up, and we haven't sent pen to paper. One more comment.
Thank you. I'm just curious, because I need a clarification. Do you guys have, are you going from the working, I guess, charter that Michael Geller created years back? Is that what is using as the base, kind of the
No,
foundation?
you know, actually what we're doing is we have looked at several charters, probably 50. I've looked at 50. We are using basically as our working model the city of Riverside.
Riverside, yeah.
We are looking also at the city of Oakland as a model. We're also looking at the city of Newport. So, and we're looking at several cities to look at this. So at the end of it, you know, there's no invention of the wheel here. The wheel has already been invented 121 times. And if you look at amendments, it's probably 500 times. So the bottom line is there's nothing here for us to invent. What we need to do is incorporate the best practices of each of these cities and make it work within our model for our individual cities suited for our special needs.
It wasn't a time with Costa Mesa when they first started the process. They were saying, well, one of the groups of people just said, let's just take Newport Beach's charter and just adopt it, right?
Exactly.
And then they said, no, we don't want to do that. So they went through the long process.
If you look at charters, there are some charters that are 5 pages long. There are some that are 163 pages long. So cities have varying degrees of verbiage. I suspect the 163 page was drafted by a bunch of lawyers. I suspect the 5 page ones were drafted by businessmen. they just hit the essentials and left all the rest to general law. So what we're endeavoring here to do is to create the best charter that we can for this city. There is no model charter. So we're kind of going to struggle through this, and I hope that you guys will all come along and work with us together on it. But not every single person's going to get their way on every single item. So, okay.
My name is Bill Perez. I am very familiar with the City of Riverside Charter. I've sat on the review committee just recently, which is an 8-year rotation. That's part of the charter language, of course. I would also suggest that there is a wonderful document available through the League of Cities, which is a model for charter city development. It's a good starting place for most charters.
I think we have that document, and I'm not positive. So if you have a link or something to it, we sure appreciate if you just.
It's League of Cities website's got it.
Yeah, we've taken everything we can off of their website, so I think we've got it. All right, so
in that box, I think we have this morning when I checked 11 different huge files, and 4 or 5 of them are from the League of Cities.
Yeah, so you know, and beyond that, we'll be sending these drafts out to thousands of people probably. Haven't really exactly figured this out. We're kind of doing some of it on the fly. So we're going to send it out to public leaders throughout the county, not just our city, for their comments also. And we'll be trying, you know, I'm exploring the possibility of being able to send the draft documents once they've been approved by the city council at the study session we'll make certain to get those out in some fashion to every citizen so that every household will have the draft documents. So.
And besides that also, Tom, you have a group of citizens and business people that you're running this across. And
yeah, and I included that in that group. I mean, I after further thought, I'm not going to ask their permission. I'm just going to send them the documents and ask them to respond. Those that want to will, and those that won't will not. But we will get a cross-section of opinions from those who are willing to share their thoughts with us.
And I have representatives from Hidden Springs and from Sunnymead Ranch that I trust that are going to be, I'm going to be doing the same thing, sharing them with it.
So, you know, I just would ask you, you know, to consider that the written word is more powerful than the spoken word. And your written comments are much appreciated. Okay, so do we have we hit all the public comments? Chris, you got anything to say? You've just been sitting there quiet? Okay, all right.
Can we start with the mechanics?
All right.
So, one of the things, Tom, I think we talked about, we need to get this on the record, is we need to ourselves put a revision date, at the, like you have the preamble with the date. So if I see preamble 312 and I see preamble 327, I know that the 312 is prior version. And so we have, each page has a footer or something with the revision date. So
right.
that you know that you don't have, oh my gosh, that's horrible. Well, it's been revised 5 times since then. And also, a note on this one, you have your name and then there's a page number. And even if it's a draft document, we need to have a page because they'll get out of order, or a page will be missing, you won't know it.
Okay.
So we can have everything being numbered and have a footer with the latest. If somebody in our group makes a revision and changes it, they need to change that date. Because like I said, I downloaded and was looking at stuff, and then my box thing or whatever that thing is in the corner says, you have, not mail, but you have a new something or other. And it was, sure enough, you had revised it or somebody did. And so I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, all right, how do I know these are different, you know? So if we could just establish that, then the public, when they see one, you look at the bottom, you'll know that you have one that's, if you have 2, you look and see which one is more current, right? So I think if we can just do that as a rule.
No, that's not a problem, Richard.
Good, thank you.
And sort of the internal mechanics of how we're doing this is that Richard and Michael are drafting, and then I am doing the final draft, the final working draft. I am the author of it. That's why my name will be at the top of these pages. They will then go, after your comments, we will then revise and change as necessary, and then they will be submitted to Suzanne, who is a city attorney, who will put them in the fashion of the final, or of what I would call the first draft. Then that first draft will go to the study committee, or the study session for the council. After their revisions and comments have been incorporated, it will go back to Suzanne, and Suzanne will draft the final draft. And then we will, that should have incorporated all the public comments, all the written public comments, all the oral public comments, all the meeting comments, all the council comments. And then she will then make it into a final draft. Then the final draft will be placed and in every stage of the way, we will place them on the website. We'll put the final draft on the website, and then slowly the public will be able to see their charter evolve from chapter 1 through how many ever chapters we have. So that's kind of the way I see it happening. And then we will have a study session for the charter in each district, and maybe multiple study sessions with the final draft for public comment. And we'll call that the final draft, but it would still be open to revision and comment, and then any revisions or comments would have to go back to the council for their revisions and comments. And then when we finally get to a final draft, it will be put on the website, and then that will be the draft that we will vote on. Bearing in mind that the citizens of this community will be the ultimate arbiter of whether this charter passes or fails. Not this council, and not this committee, and not this group.
And I think one of the things that's important is you may have people who have radically different views on a variety of subjects. But for the purpose of the charter, a lot of the comments you make may have nothing to do with the essence of it. It may have to do with the words you use. You know, will versus shall versus must versus whatever. And so it's just basically, it's like writing a term paper and someone reads it and they have their comments. That's the kind of input that, separate from the essence of the principle of it, it's going to be real helpful to have a very nicely worded document, because somebody will find a mistake or a word that's wrong. I've already seen some words, and there's even on this draft, there's an and that's missing, and there's some things like that. In our own office, Mike writes something, I revise it or edit it, and then Lisa gets it, and she finds stuff that neither one of us sees. So it really does help to have a different set of eyes look at it. Oh, you forgot this. You know, in English 1, in college, one of the first things I had to do was the instructor had us each write the exact description of how to change a tire on the freeway. And then he started pointing out the different ones. In one case, they drove away and never put the lug nuts on the tire. In one case, they changed the tire and left all the tools on the road. So when you're doing that by yourself and you're not having, it's difficult to write something in a vacuum. And I think Tom's idea of expanding it and emailing us, we were thinking earlier about setting up a dedicated email, but he's gonna do it with the subject. Please put charter on the subject, right? Just charter, right, Tom?
Just charter.
Yeah, and it will come to us.
Well, just email it to me at tomo@moval.com or moval.org. And then by the next meeting, we should have a dedicated mailbox that just says charter@moval.org. But in the interim, it will get to me, and I will distribute it to the other members. Okay. I wonder if I could just have you sort through that pile of stuff there and hand out to the audience the table of contents. Everybody has the table of contents?
Yeah, I get everything. This, whatever was in, when I was up this morning at 5, that's what I printed out. So if it's been revised since 5, I don't have it.
And I don't have, I'm sorry, we don't have a stapler here, but there are 3 pages to the table of contents. And I think, sir, I didn't catch your name, I'm sorry. What was your first name? Bill? You'll recognize this, Bill, because it's more or less the table of contents to the Riverside City Charter.
Yeah, because there's some things on here we're not going to have necessarily. And I think one of the discussions in principle was we decided that rather than specifically have all of the rules in a charter about boards and commissions, which case the only way you can change that, I think, is a charter revision, that it would be easier to just refer to the ones and then have your city ordinance.
Those are the kinds of things that we'll be discussing.
Right. Because an ordinance, we can change if you find a mistake in there, it's pretty hard to go and change it, I think, as a charter, unless I'm missing the boat. But an ordinance that we have, we just make a change and then do
just
the,
want to hand out
do the
table of contents.
first reading and all of that. So in other words, if you say, okay, we're gonna have these commissions, and then the details of it like we have now are by ordinance. All of our commissions are set by ordinance right now.
No.
Because some of these things are, you know, we're not necessarily gonna have a human resources board. And we also already have one that we don't have on here, we just started last night, was the utility commission.
So listen, we always would like research. So if you find, you know, we're looking for every example possible of a general law city who makes the transition to charter city. So if you find anything online that a charter of that, please just email the link of that to the charter email, whichever one we end up with, or to me, TOMO at moval.org. So as you get this table of contents, this is really basically a working outline of the job necessary or sitting before us and necessary to complete the charter. Next week, we will be taking comments on Article 1, which is the incorporation and succession, and Article 2, which is the general power of the city. So, while you guys are reading our rough draft, our working draft to the public, we will be working on Article 4, basically, which is, I believe that's our agenda. I don't have the calendar here. Did you print the calendar? You did? Okay. Did you get the one where I changed it, Michael?
That's the newest one I have.
Yeah. Is this the one that came out of Dropbox?
Yeah.
Okay. So I did kind of try to trim it down. We had too aggressive of a calendar. We could not possibly have ever gotten it all done in 1 week. So Article 4 will be the city council and the mayor and the enumerated power and terms. This is going to be a real meaty section. The first section is kind of the easy section. It's kind of cut and paste. And basically, this is the wording in Article 1 and Article 2 that you will find in most charters. So this is kind of generic language. So when we get to Article 4, that's when we get into the interesting things. And, you know, so let's just take your question. At the end of the meeting, while you guys are looking at Article 1 and Article 2, we will be writing Article 4, drafting Article 4, as much of it as we can get done in a week, and we may fall short and not get it all done. So when we discuss at the next meeting, at the end of the agenda, we'd certainly like to hear your comments in general, not specific comments about wording of the charter, but in general about the types of forms of government that would best serve our city. So you can study up on that. On the California League of Cities has a really good website that does have a lot of information about that. And so you can offer, you know, general testimony will probably, you know, or general comments to direct us in broader vision will be very helpful, as opposed to each and every one of you trying to become a lawyer and parsing each word. So that's what, because no matter what you parse or what we parse, the ultimate arbiter of the legal language will be Suzanne Brandt, the city attorney. So we can sit here and argue over one word one way or another for an hour and a half and agree, and then she'll change it because she is the lawyer for the city. So we have to, that's what we hire her for, and we have to follow her direction. So hopefully we can keep 20,000-foot view of this as opposed to getting into the trenches and battling over each and every word.
Can I add something to that, Tom?
Sure.
He's right. The meat of the thing is going to be in the form of government. If you look at the Riverside Charter, which I've read so many times I don't like to read it anymore, it basically says that it's going to be a manager form of government. And the mayor in Riverside doesn't vote. He has a veto, which has never been exercised, at least by Ron Leverage that I know of, et cetera. And so you have that form of government. And what I would say is that if we're looking towards a strong mayor or a medium mayor or a weak mayor, don't just say, I don't like that. Give us an alternative, especially me, because Tom and I don't agree on a lot of the issues. Say, well, you know what? You might try this. Look at the city of Timbuktu, whatever it might be, because there's different types of ways of doing this. And it's always better to come up with an alternative or an example rather than just saying you don't like it. It's always easy to say you don't like something. The hard part is coming up with the alternatives, because it may be a melding or a blending of the different forms as long as it's legal. And so consequently, you know, you've got Los Angeles, you've got cities where the mayor is the mayor. I mean, you know, and he doesn't even go to the council meetings, I don't think. Billy Ragosa doesn't go to the council meetings, does he? No.
No need to.
No need to. And so you have...
Unless he wants to lobby them.
Right. But in Riverside, I believe Ron Leverage chairs the council meeting. At least when he got shot, he was doing that. So I think that if you have, I've seen a whole bunch of these so far, and I haven't read 50, Tom, so you got one up on me. I think I've read about 15.
I haven't read 50. I have reviewed 50.
Oh, okay. All right. That's better. Makes me feel better.
The 165-page charter is difficult to read without taking several hundred naps.
Examples of compromise, examples of no one plan is totally flawed, I don't believe. In each plan, there's an essence of that may be retained or may be used, and the essence of it might be integrated into something else. I don't know. Like, does the mayor vote? Does the mayor have a veto? Does he break ties? Is the mayor at the council meetings? There's a whole bunch of things like that will be coming up, because this section is pretty meaty. And I'm looking at this other thing in Riverside. I didn't realize they have a city manager pro tem.
Well, listen, one good source of information that I would urge everyone to get on the internet and look at. The grand jury in the San Diego County, under its watchdog responsibilities, studied the issue of charter cities and the methods to improve the organization and efficiency of city government operating within this county of San Diego. This grand jury convened from 2001 to 2009, and on May 6th wrote its report. So this is about as neutral of a report as you will find about charter city versus general law city. And it is on the internet. It's easily available, and it's called Home Rule: Is Chartering a City a Good Idea? That is the first is the title of the report. And this county grand jury addressed the following: what are the present advantages and disadvantages of becoming a chartered city? Can chartered cities perform their responsibilities more efficiently for their citizens than general law cities? And what should a charter contain, and what is the best way to gain voter approval? So this is a great document. It's available on the internet. All right, so
What was the date that
they convened? It was the grand jury from 2001 through 2002, and the date of the report was May 6, 2002. So it's available. It's really easy to find. Just Google Grand Jury San Diego Charter City.
My question is this, is this one of the official 3 meetings that you have to have according to Assembly Bill 1344?
No, and I'm not aware of that.
No, this is just a working subcommittee. Those meetings will be held by the entire city council.
Okay. So if we, Michael, do you have any comments?
No. no, you know, we're not, you know, if we're just, I guess the last thing you do is hand out the first week's draft, and then they'll accept the comments next week and
Right.
over this.
Bear in mind, go ahead, sir. You know, I'm not sure that I'm going to answer this in a manner that satisfies what you're getting at, but look, let me say this. Richard Stewart and I are available. You know, you can just ask anybody. Just call the city council office number, ask for Cindy Miller, ask for an appointment. You'll get an appointment. I won't, you know, I am literally, I had 9 meetings today. I had 7 or 8 meetings yesterday. I meet with literally dozens of people every day. So if anybody has a concern or wishes to discuss this with the 2 people who are charged with drafting this charter, we're both available. And we'll make ourselves available whenever we can. Mr. Givens? I think we're shooting for 2013. You know, but it just depends on how rapidly we write this charter.
Yeah, because if we shoot for 2014, we'll fill up all that time doing this. If we shoot for 2013, we'll fill up that time doing this.
I think we should, it is the intention of the council and the intention of this committee to have this prepared in time so that it could be on the ballot on 2013, November 2013, should the council so decide. Okay? So now, I want to just have a little general discussion since we have, how much time did we allot for this meeting? Till 3:30. So let's, if we could use this time as usefully as possible. There are several, and we have Michael Geller here who can help comment. And if you went to the Saturday study session, Michael and myself and Richard Stewart participated in a dialogue about charter cities versus general law cities. But I'd like to just kind of get beyond charter cities and general law cities and talk just only about charter cities. And there are basically 2 or 3 different forms of government. I'd like to kind of have that same kind of dialogue between the 2 of them. This, we have not discussed this previous to this, so I may be hitting them blindside. And their comment, they may be prepared, they may not be. If they're not, just let us know and we'll move on to a different topic. But
Mike and I'll fake it.
in general, there is the current system of government that we have now, which is the council manager type. The city of Oakland, the city of San Francisco have a mayor-council type of government. In the mayor-council type of government, the mayor is really the person who runs the city. The council is the legislative body, and then there's a city administrator as opposed to a city manager. In this city, we have a pretty weak council, and really the staff runs the city. The city is run by an executive team of hired by the city manager, responsible to the city manager, and the only people that the council have direct control over is the city attorney, city clerk, and the city manager. So the day-to-day operations of this city are left to the staff. So when you hear people say, gee whiz, couldn't we have our city manager live in our city, and couldn't the executive staff live in our city? It's impossible under the current laws of California to require someone to live in the city in which they work. However, if the mayor runs the city, you know he's going to live in your city because you'll set the requirements that the mayor must live in the city. So the only way that you can guarantee that the city will be run by someone who lives in the city is to have a mayor-council form of government as opposed to a manager-council form of government. So, Mr. Geller, could you please just give us a rough outline of the different forms of government that are available to charter cities as well as general law cities?
Well, just Well, general law cities are restricted.
No, I don't want to get into general law cities,
No,
but just charter cities.
Well, I'd say, well, general law cities are restricted. Charter cities can do what they want, but really, it seems like the vast majority stay with the essential general law principles. They have a city manager and a city council, a city manager and a city council in some fashion. Many of them, like Riverside, sort of are a little hybrid. They have an elected mayor that's elected at large, while the Riverside City Council is elected by districts. But the mayor has virtually no power that the council doesn't have, and that seems to be the most common. However, the larger and I think the more dynamic cities have the executive branch is truly run, the mayor is truly the chief executive. And if you look at the United States of America, that's more or less how it's designed. The president would be the mayor, the Congress and the Senate would be the city council, and obviously a city doesn't have a judicial branch per se. They rely on the county courts for the judicial branch. But in a city manager, city council form of government, there's really the legislative and the executive are, the executive is really somebody appointed by the city council, not elected by the people, and that's really the biggest issue. Having grown up in Los Angeles, and a large number of people that live in the city grew up in Los Angeles, they have a real mayor, and you hear about the mayor, you almost never hear about the city council, because the city council certainly holds tremendous power, just like Congress and the Senate hold tremendous power, but you hear more about the president than you do about the Congress, because they're the voice of the city and they actually have real authority. In Riverside, where the mayor had little authority, he certainly got out there and the press quoted him amply, but he really had no control over what happened with the city. Their city manager ran the city, still runs the city, just like most of the cities in California. And the problem is, if you or I as a resident don't like the city manager, there's not a darn thing you can do about it. You can try to recall the city council and get a new city council to fire the city manager, but that is it. You have absolutely no vote whatsoever in the selection of the city manager. It's completely up to the city council, and once they pick and they sign a contract, yeah, they can fire the city manager and pay a huge sum of money, but they're kind of stuck with them unless, they commit a crime or do something where they can get fired. And again, I've been in this city since before it was a city, and the residents have never had much input whatsoever as to who was the city manager. We've had good ones, bad ones, in-between ones, and the city council meets in their meetings and they pick someone. And that's why, like I say, I think it's time we have a true mayor, and that's always been my philosophy.
When the people in the advisory vote overwhelmingly stated they wanted a citywide elected mayor, I'm going to offer this as my opinion, and I would like your comment. I believe that they meant that they wanted a strong city mayor that ran this city, who was accountable to them, and at the end of 4 years didn't do his job, got voted out. I don't believe that they wanted a citywide mayor like the city of Riverside, who really, I think that Ron Loveridge has done a tremendous job for his city by providing leadership, focus, and vision to his city and continuity to his city. I'm not in any way, shape, or form diminishing what Ron did for his city. He may not have ever did a veto, but he did a whole lot of other things over the last 18 to 20 years for his city that were impossible to accomplish in this city because we had a revolving door mayor. And with no continuity of leadership, with no vision, and no ability, if you had a vision, you had no ability to get it done, because you had to get 5 people to agree on it, or 3 of the 5. That's very hard to do when 5 people live together and have to trade votes back and forth to get what they want in their district, so that the district becomes more important than the city as a whole. And so I believe when the people of this city voted overwhelmingly to have a citywide elected mayor, that they wanted a citywide elected mayor that they could hold accountable, that would then hold the city staff accountable to achieve the vision that he articulated or he or she articulated during their campaign. And if they didn't perform and hold true to their campaign, they would be turned out at the next election. So that's what I think the voters of this city were asking for. I don't think they were asking for a weak mayor, and I don't think they were asking for a ceremonial mayor, and I don't think they were asking for a mayor that never exercised a veto. What do you think, Michael?
You know, I've done lots of elections in this city, and I concur. Like I say, lots and lots of us came from real mayor cities, and that's you know, I have no doubt. And if that's ultimately the way the charter comes out, that's the way it comes out. That's the way I'd certainly like to see it, and I think the council agrees with that. The other aspect, though, and one of the concerns of elected mayors, they don't know anything. You know, almost anybody can be elected mayor. You know, we'll set the requirements, but in essence, LA's had many first-time mayors. So how do they manage? They've never been the mayor of anything before. They've had a lot of mayors that were never on the city council. And yet, so the protection, you know, a lot of cities have adopted the way of protect, besides the city council being the ultimate decider of budget and policy decisions, the other check and balance of an errant mayor is a city administrator who is, while, you know, depending on the model, usually appointed by the mayor, approved by the city council, but can only be fired with city council approval. They're the professional, they're an expert, and the mayor has to work within the city administrator to accomplish what they want. That's some protection that if somebody has no idea how to run a city, they're going to be forced to deal with someone who does. And the city administrator, the closest thing we have, of course, is the city manager, but it's not the same because the city manager makes the final decisions in everything, virtually everything in that type of city, whereas in a strong mayor city, the mayor makes the ultimate decisions.
So let me just kind of say some things to you. I'm the mayor of this city, and I've been the mayor only a short time. I'm a fairly capable fella, and I ran businesses before, and I don't feel a bit overwhelmed at being the mayor of this city. So I can tell you what I'm about to tell you is going to maybe be a surprise to some. The city council in this city, a city councilman cannot speak directly to a city employee without the permission of the city staff, or the boss of that employee. Many people think a city councilman has a lot of power in the city, that he can go direct somebody to fix a pothole or put in a speed bump. He really can't. He can make the request. You know, and you know, I have to make this comment. City managers spend their entire waking moments trying to devise ways to divide the council into away from that 3-2 majority. Because if there's no majority of thought on the council, he can completely run the city any dang way he wants. So his every waking moment is counting votes. And when there's a 3-2 split, he's trying to find the one guy he can split off and control those votes. So the city when you have this manager council form of government, it's open to division. In order to control, you have to divide. You either completely get a complete consensus or you have to divide. And with division in the city, it's difficult for it to move forward. It's difficult for it to have a singular thought. And so, you know, that the very process that we operate under in this city right now is not one that leads us to progress. It's not one that leads us to confronting problems to a solution. It's very difficult to get a consensus among 5 people or 4 people and to maintain it over a 4-year period when the mayor is changed every year. So city council, the city manager really does run our city, and thankfully we have a very competent city manager right now. Some people may argue he's overpaid, but he certainly cannot argue that he's competent. And you cannot argue that he doesn't have a vision for this city. You may argue that you don't agree with his vision, but he is certainly the first city manager that I can recall associated with this city that's had a real vision for this city. But he runs our city, and if you don't like the city manager, you really don't have much to say about it as a citizen. You have a little more to say about it as a councilman, but not a whole lot more. And that's my critique of this form of government that we have. The people.
I'll draw just a simple distinction between a strong mayor city and the classic example. Every corporation in America is run. There's always a chief executive of some kind, and they're both the voice of the company, and they decide what's going to happen. Apple company went from near bankruptcy to, at one point, it was it was by stock value the largest company in the entire world, all because of one person, Steve Jobs. I mean, he took the company from near bankruptcy and made it into the, at least for a few weeks, it was the most valuable company in the world. That's it. And that was all. And no one could, I don't think anyone here, including myself, could name one director of the Apple company. I have no idea who the board of directors are. We all, for the most part, we certainly knew who Steve was, and I don't remember the name of the current president, although I've seen his picture, and but anyway, a lot can happen with the right chief executive, and that's all we can hope for is the voters will, if we do elect to go with a strong mayor, that the voters will pick the right strong mayor and the city can move forward, because we have not thrived under the city council, city manager.
The other thing,
languished.
the other thing I can tell you is this: I ran in one district, and running a city council campaign is a very large job. It takes a lot of organization skill. You have to raise money. You have to do all the things. You have to manage time. You have to listen to all the concerns of your constituency. And I would suggest to you that anyone that can successfully run a citywide campaign for mayor in this city is going to be more qualified than the average fella or woman to run this city. And so I believe that citywide campaign will be the testing ground, and you'll have a very good opportunity to see the candidates and determine whether or not they have the ability to run your city. And if you make a mistake, it's 4 short years to throw in the bums out.
Can I make some comments too?
Sure.
You two guys are speaking about the way the city has been run, from looking outside, looking in. I've been around here, and I remember, and I won't mention names of previous council members going all the way back to 1990, but we've had strong council members. We've had people who actually exerted influence over the activities far beyond what they had in terms of votes. We had one council member who shall remain unnamed, who I refer to her as the junior city manager, because she would go into an office, instead of going through the stream of things, she'd go into an office and say, "You will go out and fix that pothole or I'll get you fired." And I mean, you got to the point where they were giving orders directly to employees as if they were the supervisor, and there may have been a reason why the city manager or the council didn't want the resources that day spent doing whatever it was. And that particular person was a real headache for the city managers. I found out you can get things done the same way without going in and ordering someone to do it if you do have a good relationship with the council and a good relationship with the city manager. So there's different ways of getting things done.
But with all due respect, Richard, we can't count on the fact that you're going to be.
I'm going to have to finish, Tom. But I do believe that the system that we're looking at will allow you to get things done without having to worry about games and personalities.
Exactly.
That's the difference. The difference is if you got someone, and let's face it, Judy Nieberger was.
So you weren't going to name her, and then you just went and named her.
That's not the person I'm talking about. That's a person who was a strong personality on this council. We're looking at strong personalities on the council. And when I came on, she had a very...
We have only a few people to pick from, Mike.
Right, but that's a different example. She was not the person I was talking about. And she actually was very, 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 very strong. And when I was on the Traffic Safety Committee, just a little committee member in City Hall was on HECOG. It was smaller than this room. We decided that we wanted to recommend a motorcycle patrol. The officers had put together a plan, 3 officers, 3 motorcycles, used motorcycles. And we couldn't get it on the agenda. city manager, or actually it was Dave Dixon was the city manager and Gene Haraldson was the other guy. I hated his guts. But anyway, and how I got it on there was I went to Judy at a bank one day and said, you know what, the Traffic Safety Committee would like to get this thing on the agenda for us to look at. What are you talking about? Well, city manager controlled the agenda.
But I can just suggest to you that if there aren't 3 votes to fire a city manager, you're not going to get the city manager to do what you want him to do. That's what it takes to get a city manager to do what you want him to do.
So this method that we're talking about as one variation will actually facilitate getting things done. So I think that's a positive of it. The other thing is, as far as a citywide campaign, I know somebody who was mayor of a large city that's near us, not Riverside, and I know what it takes to run a citywide campaign for mayor, because he ran it and he won. And it takes money. Where I could run a campaign, at that time I was actually running my council campaign for $10,000. In those days you could do that. He ran his, and his minimum was $50,000. So you got to take a look at it. It does take a big management issue, but it also takes a lot of money. So you have to take a look at that aspect.
But there's skill involved in getting money.
Absolutely, and there's also skill involved in running a campaign. But
yeah.
I think the thing is that Mike's right. The city managers have their bread is buttered. The thing I noticed over the years has been frustrating for me is trying to get additional police officers, trying to get changes, trying to get a new police building, etc. Generally, the city managers are more interested in getting more assistant city managers and people in this building than they are in getting stuff over there, but the people on the street are more interested in more fire stations and fire engines and more police. So you have that where a mayor is elected by the people, city manager is not. The mayor knows what the people would want, because hopefully the mayor's gone out like Tom did. How many houses? 5,000?
I did 7,500 houses, and some of them twice, so it was actually stood on the doorstep 10,000
And you get a good idea of what's going on. Now, one other comment was made about what the people voted for. I guess I am a little bit of a pessimist in terms of the education of the people. My own family, people at the base that still know me, you going to run for mayor next year? No, you don't run for mayor. And I have to go through the whole process of explaining it to them. My favorite argument on the doorstep with 2 college-educated teachers up off of Chambray. No, it wasn't Chambray. Yeah, Chambray. A few years ago was, hi, I'm running for city council for City of Moreno Valley. Oh, we don't live in Moreno Valley. Oh, are you just visiting? No, we live here. Okay. And they're on my list because I had a list of voters. You know, I bought it from the, well, you know, you are in Moreno Valley. No, we're not. Okay, well, you get to a point where if you argue with them, they're going to hate you. So I said, okay, see you guys later. And when they go in to vote and they see the name on the ballot, I don't know what they're going to think. These are college-educated teachers that thought they lived in Riverside. Now, to further that idea, on the east end of the west end of the city, off of Morton Road in that area, did you know that the phone numbers, the phone part of that area is City of Riverside telephone numbers? Still, Verizon, or what was used to be whatever, never came in. Some of those people have Riverside phone numbers, and they actually think they live in Riverside. I've met them. So as far as what the people think, they think now. When you run into they think now, including educated people, that the mayor is somehow elected.
Well, they think the mayor has some power.
Well, that's the other thing.
But listen, when you get the documents, the preamble, we have sort of telegraphed to you that we are in favor of a mayor-council form of government. So the preamble will tell you that we believe this charter, which will provide for a citywide elected mayor, term limits, and basic qualifications, including residency requirements for city council and mayoral candidates, will provide for accountability and ethics in public service and assure the city is managed by people who reside within the city. So that you will see when we get to the preamble, there will be wording of that. One portion of the preamble I want to talk to you about, which I believe is interesting, should be interesting to you, is this. We further believe that the charter will make the city of Moreno Valley a city that will promote public education in a way that will enable all residents to acquire the knowledge and skills necessary to participate fully in Moreno Valley's civic, intellectual, cultural, and economic life in order to enrich and strengthen our community and our common future. Now, I know I can read some of your thoughts. You're saying, what cultural? life, what jobs, what economic life, and why education when there's a school board. Well, here is the deal. If we, under this charter, we can assess fees to developers to make them pay for cultural items in the community. So if they want to develop in our community, they have to provide some cultural entity to our community. The city of Irvine does this routinely.
Actually, there are a lot of cities that mandate public art in front of every
Building.
project of any size.
So we can change the entire face of our community by adopting into our charter these types of provisions. We can ask that the city adopt in a fashion the same type of funding, and we're still working on this portion of it, that would allow us to mandate the AVID program in our elementary schools as opposed to our high schools. The county is paying and helping pay in the school district for the upper grades, but the cows are already out of the barn by then. What we need to do is we need to put added resources at the elementary level where the children and the parents are still involved with each other, and where we can teach parenting skills and where we can teach study skills. So the city charter will allow us to make those types of dedicated requirements of developers, and which will improve our city as they improve, as they enter our city and partake of our of all the good things of our city. They would be paying back in a fashion and creating, going back and retroactively turning our city into a more beautiful city, which it should have been all along, but which it didn't have these provisions for the first 24 years of its existence. So we can go back and do some repair here, and it'll make the people who are making money from developing in our city make our city a better city, aesthetically, culturally, educationally, intellectually, and economically. So that when you read the preamble, you may note the draft of the preamble, you may note that seems to be kind of a statement that's really out of position for a city charter. But I wanted to explain to you why it's there. So,
Tom, can I throw one more thing in? One of the things when we go through this process is if it gets to an area which is really sort of not critical, or maybe critical, but is sort of, generic, vanilla, you can just refer that the provisions of this, whatever it is, section, like compensation, for instance, I'm going to mention this, will be according to general law. So, and the reason I mention that is Riverside does not. Riverside raised their pay, what it was 100% for the council members. But the one city that did a charter that left the compensation to general law was the city of Bell. And what they were accused of and tried for was violating the requirements of compensation set by the general law. Now, had they written a charter to put some dream thing in there about their pay, they probably wouldn't have gotten into the trouble they did. But
bottom line is they would have been in trouble regardless.
Right, but the thing is,
didn't matter what they were.
We have the ability, when you're thinking about suggestions to us, you get into a certain area, and you like the general law requirements of that, that could be your suggestion. Leave it to general law in terms of how that particular aspect is handled, whatever it might be.
Well, and if you have specific requests, do that. But let me just say this. You're not going to get people, this is a full-time job. If you want to be more than a ceremonial mayor, it's a full-time job. If you don't believe me, I'll show you my calendar. I've never worked harder. And there's still more to do. And
you're not selling anything.
I'm not getting paid by my, by my hours, that's for certain. And the truth of the matter is, councilmen are overwhelmed. I don't know how you could be a decent councilman in this city and still maintain a full-time job. There is so much work. This city is not Riverside. It's not got 109 years of solid basis on it to rely on. It doesn't have a power company that's producing almost half of its general fund requirements. This city is a difficult, it has a lot of problems, a lot of what I called unsolved opportunities. There's opportunities in our problems. If we collectively and creatively solve them, the problems can be turned into opportunities. But it is a big job, folks, and we can be penny wise and pound foolish when it comes to compensation. And, you know, a lot of people we've had this conversation about our current city manager. Just compare what he's done versus what the last folks have done. This city is going to survive financially in a good part to the work that this man and his management team have done. This council has come by and given him the support necessary to get the job done sooner than he would have done it otherwise. But the bottom line is, you get what you pay for, no matter what it is, whether it's personnel or whether it's product on the shelf. If it's half the price of everything else on the shelf, you should beware. So everybody have a copy of the preamble now? We'll pass it out.
You might as well, why don't you just pass out the rest?
Well, we will, Michael. You obviously have never run a meeting.
I wouldn't say that.
Because if you pass out everything, they'll be busy reading that and not listening to what you're saying. So we pass it out as we go.
One other thing, just between you and me,
Okay, so you've had a moment to look at it, and we'll talk about it more in depth. The next thing I want to pass out is the Article 1, which is incorporation and succession, which is really just kind of, go ahead and you can pass out the Article 1, which is kind of boilerplate. It basically just says that the city's name will remain Moreno Valley. The city boundaries will remain the same. We still have the same rights and liabilities, that nobody's contracts are going to be voided if we become a charter city. Continuance of the ordinance, rules, and regulations will all remain intact. Continuance of the present officers and employees. And then the effective date of the charter. The transition to the new form of government is something new, and it is rough. This is the roughest portion of it. This is not boilerplate. This is something created, and we need to discuss with the city attorney in the next week the necessity, number one, for Section 105 and the wording for it, and we will have a revised version of Article 1 by next week. I've discussed it with the committee, and the committee believes that Section 105 should be included, which is the existing commissions, boards, and committees would just remain intact until the Charter Council and mayor decided otherwise, and then it would operate under the rules of the charter. So that this is just really basically a document that ensures the continuity of government during the changeover. From general law city to charter city. Article 2 we'll pass out here next as soon as she's through, will be the general powers of the city, the access to public meetings and public records. One of the things that's interesting in Section 201 that you'll be getting in a few minutes is that we have the committee has elected to abide by the Brown Act regardless if the Brown Act is in power or not. There is some question as to whether or not the Brown Act is even valid now, because the language of the law suggests that if the state does not make the funds available for the city to comply with the Brown Act, that the Brown Act is not in power, or is not the controlling law. So this committee believes, regardless of whether or not it is or not, the city should comply with the Brown Act under all circumstances at all times. So that would be something on Section 201. 202 would be something new. which is the adoption of an ethics code. Not many cities have this in their charter provisions, but this committee believes that the council and the mayor, first order of business is to produce and adopt a ethics code for all of its members. So that will be coming your way. And then we will be looking forward to seeing you at the same time in the same place next week, or at least getting your comments in the email. Or you can use the stale mail. If you don't know how to do the email, just address it to Tom Owings, Charter, Moreno Valley, and I will get it. So I believe we have put out to you our work product. We will get a agenda and calendar on the website as soon as possible. We will get a mailbox dedicated solely to Charter as soon as possible. And we will post documents like this home rule article on that website once we get it up and running. And that should be fairly soon. But with the move, the resources of the technical staff have been basically challenged, just keeping everything operating for the staff as it is. So I would like to compliment those of you in the audience for your demeanor and your comments and your input today. Looking forward to working with you over the next several months. I'd like to thank Michael Geller for donating his time and effort to advise and consult with Richard and myself. I'd like to thank Richard and the city staff for the time that they're taking. And I would say seek the motion to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Okay. See you next week.
There's two of us. So if once